Hi and welcome to the studio today, or my home office. I've got a bunch of different devices connected up here, which we're going to test today to see which one is best for Microsoft Teams specifically. Recording all of that audio through Microsoft Teams to see what other sort of magic noise reduction stuff those microphones have put on them that affect how you're heard by everyone else when you use Microsoft Teams. So this here is a sneak peek of what we're going to work towards by testing each one of these devices. We'll start with an audio test through recording of that microphone or webcam or whatever through MS Teams, and then we'll have a quick commentary after each one, just reviewing what the pluses and minuses were, some of those summarized here. But have a think about what they sound like to you and make your own choices as we go through. Then maybe these costs numbers on the left hand side will also help you pick what's a good fit for you, your use case and your budget. This is the Logitech C270. This is the Logitech C270. So just one other thing, I'm going to be speaking to the microphone in one view and then speak away. This is mainly to get an idea of directionality in those microphones and how much it picks up ambient noise sometimes. So our first webcam, the C270, we can see that it's a webcam. It's a sort of entry range, 75 Australian dollars, and it does what it says on the box. Microsoft Teams does a pretty good move at removing echoes from that. Be aware that as the microphone isn't all that close to the speaker, it's probably going to pick up some noise from the sides if you've got some other colleagues nearby as well. Moving right along.
This is the laser pulse Bluetooth speaker. This is the laser pulse Bluetooth speaker. This is the laser pulse Bluetooth speaker held a bit closer. This is the laser Bluetooth pulse Bluetooth speaker held a bit closer.
So now heading to a cheap and cheerful Bluetooth speaker. This one is connectable to pretty much any device through Bluetooth and also offers a little microphone on top so you can use it as a speakerphone. But as we can hear, it's a pretty rubbish microphone, and for I guess the $20 or $30 that I spent on it a long time ago, that's not a big surprise. What we see with these Bluetooth speakers is they've got good sound, good sort of production of lots of volume, but when it comes to a microphone, they're really not well suited, really not designed for that use case. The algorithms in Microsoft Teams are even trying to reduce noise out of that signal, and that's why we definitely don't look for these Bluetooth speakers to be good pickups for sound for microphones. Let's move on to the next one. This is the Jabra Speak 510. This is the Jabra Speak 510. This is a cat. Yeah. The Jabra 510 is one of my favorite devices, not just because it has a pretty good reproduction of sound and it seems to play nicely with MS Teams in terms of not getting too garbled in the noise reduction algorithms, but also because it has Bluetooth connection or USB connection, meaning that you can grab a laptop, happily just plug it in through USB, it'll charge while that happens, or you can connect it via Bluetooth to your phone. In fact, you can do both at the same time even. This is super handy if you want to use your phone to present to a or to connect a meeting room full of 4 or 5 people to your remote workers, and maybe even set up your smartphone on a tripod showing the people in the meeting room with really good audio quality. It's got a speaker on top as well, meaning that anyone on the other side of the line can be really well heard even in that meeting room environment. A field effects speaker on top makes that pickup of people who are relatively far away from the microphone to work pretty well, as well as some internal noise reduction algorithms that can reduce background noise to a certain extent. On screen, these are about 170 Australian dollars. So it's definitely starting to pick up, but in my point of view, worth every cent, and I bring it around the place to meeting rooms all the time when, as pretty much whenever there's more than one person to connect via a single device. This is the Logitech Brio. This is the Logitech Brio. So this clip is a reminder that we are recording through the internet on this one. So we lost reception for a moment there, but hopefully you heard the Logitech Brio, a 4K webcam, a bit of an upgrade to the C270 that you saw just before. It's about 4 times the resolution. It has a wide angle lens, but it's also about 4 times the cost. So for $350 you get a webcam that's more capable in lower light environments, has a 120 degree wide angle lens, not really shown in this case, but in a meeting room that might help to catch more people. The microphone is so-so. I mean, it catches well in this small room, and the algorithms and MS Teams cleaned it up a little bit. But if you had more than one person in the meeting room, it's not necessarily going to pick up the audio better than your next best configuration, like some of the ones that we'll point out soon. So let's move on. This is the Sennheiser Game 1. This is the Sennheiser Game 1. So this is the first microphone that's just near your mouth, meaning that it picks up, it isolates the sound of you much better than other microphones, especially if you've got some noise nearby or other colleagues. In this case, this is the Sennheiser Game 1 or Game 0. I'm not sure what the difference is between them, to be honest, but it's a closed earphone, meaning that you're going to get some good isolation from the other sounds nearby. It makes it a bit better than if you have other colleagues on the same call as you might avoid some of the sort of disorientating echo that you can hear sometimes in those circumstances. So this is a good option if you've got colleagues nearby in the same area. You don't want them to hear you. You don't want other people to hear feedback where they hear your colleague through your microphone as well as their microphone, and you still want to get good stamina, good endurance, because it's really quite comfortable. This is a headset that I used for 2 years while on calls every day to the UK, Singapore, the US, where pretty much all of my meetings were online, and I can use it all day. It's also very handy because you can mute it by just flicking the boom up. This is the Logitech H390 headset with on-ear earphones and noise cancelling boom mic. The Logitech H390 is a pretty good balance for the office environment. Firstly, it has that boom microphone design, and while it's marketed as being a sort of noise cancelling mic, I reckon it's just covered in on one side, and that directioning to your mouth really allows it to cancel out the nearby colleagues. It has an over-ear design, which is good in some ways and less good in others, in that it allows you to hear yourself a bit, so you're not going to be yelling at your computer because you can't hear yourself as well. But it also means that if you're on the same call at your desk as someone nearby, you might hear their voice in real life and then their voice through your headphones, which can be a little bit disorientating. One other great thing is that it's a USB headset, so you can connect that to a laptop dock, you can connect it to your laptop, no fiddly audio connectors. And it also means that it has a little remote on the cord, so you can change the volume and mute the microphone with that button in your call if you would like. On the economic side, it seems to be less of a consumer device, just in terms of how many listings there are, and I guess, how many listings there are. So Logitech say it's a $40 device, but in Australia that means it goes up to about $89, which is beyond the exchange rate. It's just an interesting quirk for this one. So that's the Logitech H390. This is the Zoom Q2n-4K. This is the Zoom Q2n-4K. The Zoom Q2n-4K is a bit of a wild card, and I actually use it for recording classical concerts where the need to capture really soft and really loud noises is important without there being much noise coming into the signal as well. So it's not really a thing to use it as a MS Teams mic, but it does have some helpful characteristics which mean you might do that. This one has a camera on as well, so it can act as a webcam external to your laptop or your computer, but note that it's really bad in lower light situations. So why use it? In a large room, it's not a directional mic, which means that it can pick up everything in the room quite well, and it has a very low noise, so that also means that when Microsoft tries to change the amplification on that microphone, it can bump up the amplification quite a lot before a sort of buzzing comes into the sound, which you can't say of weaker microphones. So on the economic side, it's a different purpose. It's a more speciality device, and it does 4K video as well. So you won't expect it to cost less. This is $350. It is probably not your typical webcam, and you can get that from DJ stores, camera stores, and yeah, that's just another tool in the palette, I guess, when it comes to microphones and cameras.
This is the Skullcandy Jib wired headset. This is the Skullcandy Jib wired headset.
The Skullcandy Jib is a really great budget option. You can get it for about $20 Australian anywhere, and although it's simple, the microphone sits quite close to your mouth, meaning that it's not going to pick up too much nearby sound, even if it's not an awesome microphone. The design of the earphones as well, then in-ear design with that silicon slip, which really makes an airtight contact. So you get good bass reproduction, also eliminates or suppresses noise from outside. That's passive noise reduction. That's super handy if you're on the same call as colleagues nearby and you can hear them and what their noise they're making through the call a couple of milliseconds later. So when it comes to connecting this to your laptop, it depends on whether your laptop has just a regular headphone jack or a headset jack, typically indicated by the headset icon, which has that boom on it as well. So there's one more pin in that connector, meaning that it can read the microphone. Of course, that's the same connector you've got on most smartphones, although smartphones are starting to take that jack away in favor of Bluetooth headphones nowadays. This is the Lenovo X270 array microphone. This is the Lenovo X270 array microphone. This is the Lenovo X270 ThinkPad laptop array microphone and webcam. So the Lenovo is an internal laptop microphone, and it's subject to, I guess, some challenges when it comes to being inbuilt. This is a stereo microphone. It's got two microphones, meaning that it's relatively good at isolating the voice of the subject. In this case, I've got two clips because there's been some variance in the quality of sound coming out of this one. The first one had some buzzing and the second one had less buzzing. Sometimes this is due to the internal fan making noise and that transmitting through the body. I've heard examples of tablet or convertible PCs where if the fan comes on, the microphone pretty much gets wiped out because they're only about 10 centimeters away from each other. In this case, one of these laptops is anywhere between $1,000 and $2,000 depending on the model. But I wouldn't call this a great example. I've heard it sounding much better from my colleagues who use the array microphone all the time, and actually even in a meeting room setup, I've heard it transmit quite well, at least when MS Teams has an opportunity to change the amplification when someone more distant is speaking versus someone who's speaking more closely. This is the HP X360 Spectre internal microphone. This is the HP Spectre X360 internal microphone. The HP Spectre 360 is a slightly more premium, albeit personal laptop, not business type laptop. Uses the same stereo microphone setup, but it seems to have, in this case, a lot less noise. So there's virtually no noise, and the production from this is really quite good. I'm not sure if there's additional processing going on in the computer, but MS Teams seems to like it pretty much at the end of the day. There's a little bit of cutout from the bass, but that's not really a big issue. I'm not sure how well this deals with more distant sounds, but that'd be an interesting next step in testing.
This is audio recorded through the front-facing camera of my Xiaomi Mi 9. This is audio recorded through the front-facing camera of my Xiaomi Mi 9.
This is the Xiaomi Mi 9, a smartphone. It's a Chinese brand that you can get, in this case, for 650 Australian dollars. It's quite typical of smartphones in that the signal from the microphone is not all that strong. You hear that the amplification and noise reduction algorithms in MS Teams are making the sound a bit garbled. It doesn't know what the difference is between the sound of your voice and the noise created through the microphone when you're some distance. The microphone is more designed to be used as a headset and as a speakerphone when it's quite close to you. So in this case, not a great sound quality.
This is recorded through the main camera of my Xiaomi Mi 9. This is recorded through the main camera of my Xiaomi Mi 9.
In this case, it's the same phone, just different camera and same microphone. So the change in quality between the two cameras is really marginal, and pointing the microphone towards you doesn't really make any difference in this case. This is recording using the main camera, using audio from the Jabra 65T Elite Actives. This is audio through the Jabra 65T Elite Actives through mobile phone. This Jabra Bluetooth headset is really good at isolating your voice in this case. There's no real noticeable degradation in quality associated with that Bluetooth transmission of the audio, and it's definitely a big step up from the microphone in the phone. It also means that pretty much wherever you're facing, and even if you're moving around quite a bit, with the exception of wind noise, it'll give your voice quite a rich reproduction. If you've got a lot of background noise nearby, it might run into some challenges as those mics are right back by your ears. It's not necessarily as good as having that boom mic out as in other headsets. On the commercial side, we've got, here we are, Cat. We've got Kogan, who offer these at 170, 199. This is the model that I have demonstrated today. So this is the Rode Lavalier Go microphone. It's hypothetically the best quality mic that can be used for what's essentially an interview type purpose. I might pick up from there now, minus the noise reduction that MS Teams puts onto the microphone. This is the same lavalier microphone being used, but I realize that the quality degradation means that you won't be able to see the information here on screen now. So this is what it costs to get yourself a Rode Lav GO, $70, $80, $90. Now, one of the interesting configurations for any lavalier microphone is that you might want to plug it, or any one of these wired microphones really, is you might want to plug it up to a wireless transmitter if you're using one of those capture cards and a more sophisticated camera. Now you're really starting to level up the game, and the ability to isolate distant subjects from your subject who might be far away but very close to the microphone you've planted on them. Now these microphones don't necessarily have much smarts in them to eliminate noise, within a couple of meters of them, but just that ratio of distance from mouth to here and then distance to whatever the extraneous noise is definitely an advantageous factor. So although this is overkill for using in MS Teams, it's just a helpful benchmark for what other microphones might sound like when plugged through MS Teams. This is the Sony A7s with a Rode NTG USB microphone, shotgun microphone. The SLR camera is connected through a HDMI capture card that goes into USB to act as a webcam. So this is the kit that I use day to day on MS Teams in video chats. It's definitely overkill. I have this equipment for other video making purposes, but the Sony A7s goes for about $2,000 as a low light, or almost cinema camera. The VideoMic is a highly directional shotgun microphone, very good for isolating out things from your sides and behind you. The video signal of the A7s is captured through HDMI output, and it is converted through one of these handy little cards into a video signal, and that's what I've been recording all of these clips, like the one now, throughout this tutorial. So this is definitely a level up when it comes to the ability to produce sharp pictures, especially in low light conditions. If you are interested in zooming up a lot on subjects in larger events, or isolating noises in large rooms, this would probably be a good fit. Otherwise, you can hear that there's not much difference when it comes to using this versus cheaper setups when it comes to MS Teams. The video quality is quite degraded depending on your internet connection, and the audio quality will still have the same sort of filters put on them through MS Teams. So that's the roundup of all of our microphones and cameras today. So here we are back at the master chart of all of the microphones and the different ratings that we've seen over these tests. I've just ordered this in the order of, I guess, the ratings from top to bottom. So you'll see the rating column on the right is sort of a combination of sound quality and the noise rejection of the microphone. And on the right, just as importantly, we've got the use case. Of course, these ratings in general remark on the quality of the sound coming from the microphone and how it rejects sound, but it doesn't mean that it will pick up more than one person just as well as for one person. So pinch of salt. Now on the left you'll see the cost as well, and of course this is a huge factor when it comes to these microphones. So just going from top to bottom, yes, if you want the best audio for the cheapest payment, the Rode Lav GO is excellent, but of course it's quite awkward with the way the wire works. If you go down further, well, the Skullcandy jib is a bit of a steal when it comes to using it for that purpose. Now, in the same way, you can look at these in a different lens. So there are a number of microphones with headphones and speakers. So I've just done a sort of revision of that same chart, just looking at the headsets first. Some of these had, were in your ear, and others were speakers. So this chart, once again, top to bottom regarding quality, but now adding in the quality of the speakers into the mix as well. So you'll see that it's not necessarily top to bottom when it comes to the mic plus speaker rating. At the top there, that's Sennheiser Game 1. Used it for 2 years. Very comfortable, great for music when you're not in a meeting room or not on a call. And more recently, the Logitech H390, with the exception of there not being as much isolation from people nearby, is a very good contender and a lot more accessible in terms of price. At the end of the day, it's pretty hard to get away from the Skullcandy jib or your typical Apple EarPods as well. Very good for the money. and when you start thinking about how much Microsoft compresses and adapts the sound, you're not really getting that extra quality out of dollars spent for a microphone if it does those sort of basic functions of isolating your voice from things around you and getting that sort of balance of sound right. So there was one more group of devices, and that was the microphones in webcams. So in this case, similar activity, went through what the microphone ratings were. That's the order from top to bottom, but then added the video quality and low light capability of that camera into the mix as well. So these ratings on the right hand side, you'll see what you might consider if you're going to use these devices for both your audio as a microphone and the video as a webcam. So that's the food for thought. Now, how does this boil down into selecting some devices for your use case? Well, as I mentioned, that budget recommendation, you've got a smartphone, you've got a laptop, all you really need is some cheap earbuds, those Skullcandy jibs or the Apple EarPods, and they'll do you for 90% of cases. Now, if you want to upgrade, well, we're talking about working without wires, we're talking about having more than one person in the meeting room or on the call in the same place as you. And we're also talking about darker environments, or where you want to show things around the room that are not just your face in front of the laptop. So if you're going to the next level, well, in that case, I wouldn't necessarily recommend the devices I've reviewed today, but perhaps some slightly more modern versions. My device has been collected over the last 5 years, so it's no surprise that there are some newer editions out. So you can really get some quite good value for money on Amazon, for example, with that Tautronics Bluetooth wireless headset, with noise reduction built in for 57 Australian dollars. It's quite well reviewed for this purpose and works quite similarly to the more expensive Jabra Elite Active 65Ts that we demonstrated earlier for about 4 or 5 times the price. Now I've got one of each type of headphone here because not everyone likes having those earbuds in their ears just from a comfort point of view. So there's the on-ear variety, the H390, a recent headset and pretty good value for 77 to 90 Australian dollars. And then if you really want to go to something that you want to use for music, you want to use for traveling and flying, you can go anywhere in between that price-wise, but one of the really well-reviewed units for both audio quality and just all-around heavy hitter, but also good for voice calls. That's really the Bose noise cancelling headphone 700. You'll get them for $484 via Amazon. Now I've got a list of others there that are quite handy, but when it comes to webcams, don't be afraid to look at third-party or sort of off-brand options, especially since COVID has hit. You can pay a lot for a webcam, and they're not necessarily any better if they're a name brand, and they're just not very well stocked across the globe right now. Lastly, I mean, this is probably a no-brainer. Yep, add monitors, add a mouse and a keyboard. Sometimes by adding a monitor, you can make it quite awkward to use the laptop webcam. So that's a pretty good case for getting external webcam then. Don't feel like you have to use the microphone on the webcam if you've got a better headset with good microphones on it. So this will do you for those really long meetings if you're spending hours and hours in front of your computer on calls. If you're in an open working environment in an office and you have a lot of other people on calls nearby, it can really help to upgrade some of these elements. So when it comes to the camera, people being able to read your body language is really helpful when it comes to being understood in online meetings. So that's where having it in that slightly higher position, looking at you at eye level, is a bit better than it sort of coming up your nose from the webcam on your laptop. Of course, one workaround to that is, put your laptop up on a bunch of books and just bring it up higher, and that's equivalent a lot of the time, depending on what your laptop model is. So when it comes to going beyond the desk, there are just so many different things you can do. Leveling up the microphones and your speakers and camera can get a lot more modular when you start talking about trying to capture or broadcast or bring remote workers into larger group events or meetings or events at your company. So now we're starting to talk about wireless microphones, speakerphones. Of course, I demonstrated one, the Jabra 510. Speak 510, which is quite versatile, connect to a mobile or a laptop through Bluetooth. Here's a picture of it just on the laptop. It wasn't easy to see on the video before. Super versatile, use it all the time. On this chart, I've got just a little more on the sort of scenarios that I've plotted out for this purpose. In terms of miking up live events, well, you can actually do a lot with a smartphone here. The MS Teams app on a smartphone is quite good, and the camera on your smartphone is quite good. And for as little as a microphone upgrade, which is really what the difference, where you can make the biggest difference when it comes to these devices. For an upgrade to a shotgun microphone, suddenly you can bring people into the room that you might not have been able to otherwise. Also, just touched on with the Sony A7s before, using a HDMI capture card can mean that you open up all of these sort of more professional or even hobbyist cameras, photo cameras that have really good video coming out of them. A clean HDMI output is the real distinction for those. Not every camera will give you a clean HDMI output that will allow one of these capture cards to give you a really crisp webcam alternative. Next, if you're miking up an event and you've got people who are quite far away but you want to be able to get a really crisp signal, now we're talking about wireless microphones. And in this case, the Rode Wireless Go is pretty much the best option for that, and gives you a whole nother level of versatility. If you're thinking of how to connect all of these things together, I'm working on a event right now which brings in audio and video feeds from 3 or 4 different sites across the business. That all comes into a Microsoft Teams live event, which I'll be, I guess, manipulating as a producer of that, and we can serve that to anyone who's working from home or any mobile device anywhere in the world, really. So it's pretty versatile, and in that we can select which audio and which video feeds come into the broadcast, and that will allow you to broadcast up to like 100,000 people, which is amazing. So here's a bit of a shopping list. Of course, you can't click on the links, and happy to provide them if you want to message me, but if you just do a Google search on Amazon, AliExpress or eBay for any of these, it's pretty easy to find some really good kit which can level up your game. Of course, if you're looking at meeting rooms, there are a lot of sort of commercial options, but I guess my advice is consumer equipment is built with those people in mind and can be a bit easy to use and much less expensive. And the results are really quite good now. So thanks for listening, and thanks for, I guess, showing some interest into how to help your colleagues understand you better and how to communicate in this hybrid working environment. I'm Thomas Freiberg, and thank you for joining me in my virtual office here today.